Welcome back to another episode of STEM and Stilettos. This is your host, Zofia Morales, and I'm here today with Lindsay Scherr Burgess. Lindsay is the founder and moss boss of Green Wallscapes, a company that brings spaces to life with no hassle, preserved moss, walls, logos, lettering, and art. She's done projects in over 35 states, Canada, and the Caribbean, and employs a team of mostly female artists in her West Palm Beach studio. Her company's work has been called a lavish expression of botanical joy and has been featured in Architectural Digest, Veranda Magazine, Palm Beach Post, Palm Beach Daily News, and more. Green Wallscapes was selected to participate in the prestigious Kips Bay Decorator Show House in 2019. Green Wallscapes' client list includes major developers like Omley Residential, Aimco, Greystone, and Zom, as well as major brands like Amazon, Starbucks, AutoNation, Stella Artois, Garden of Life, Hilton, and more. In 2023, Green Wallscapes was awarded the top 100 women-led businesses in Florida by the Women's Edge. Lindsay's background is diverse. She has worked in organic produce, construction, commercial real estate, and book publishing in a sales and marketing role. She loves to travel, speaks fluent Italian, and can be found painting, doing yoga, and jet skiing on the weekends. She's a graduate of Northwestern University and lives in Grandview Heights with her entrepreneurial husband, John, and their daughter, Skylar. Welcome to the show, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I just love having guests on who've done all this stuff. But the drawback to this long list of credentials is people think you walk on water and you're not like a normal person like everyone else. So tell us where you started, Lindsay, before you were amazing, top
Before it was
100 women
amazing.
led. Yes, all the accolades.
I'm not sure that I'm amazing, but I think that being an entrepreneur is really wild. It's you choose to not have any support system. Typically, people who start businesses like mine, there isn't a school that you go to learn how to have a creative business like this. There's no Moss school, there's no apprenticeship, there's no, like, we had to invent pretty much everything, including all the processes, finding all the places where we can get enough supply to meet the demand of our clients, train up our team to do the work the way that we want the work to be done, and develop a whole process for sales and marketing and all these other things. So I was very much an accidental entrepreneur in a lot of ways. Like, my background is more in sales and marketing. We've been always very interested in business development and marketing and enjoy
So
that.
tell
Uh,
me how this happy accident came about.
The happy accident happened literally by accident. My husband and I make things. And so one weekend I went to the craft store, bought some moss and glued it to a board or glued it to a frame. And I was like, I'm amazing. Look at this. And so
Isn't
this
this
was,
fun and cool?
isn't this fun and cool? I think I posted it on Facebook. And then, a couple weeks later, like, a friend of ours was like, hey, I've got a building. I want to stick something like that in there. Can you make that for us? And then we had another person say, hey, could you make us a moss logo? And so my husband and I really, like, literally started doing this in our garage in our apartment building just for fun. And we did a couple for 2 or 3 years. We didn't really focus on it. We didn't put any energy behind it. I think I stuck pictures of it up on Etsy, but they were so rough. But we still got, like, inquiries of people who were like, this is super cool. I would love to have one of these. And then in 2018, when the project that I was working on was ending, the book publishing project that I was working on was ending, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? And I didn't like any of the options out there. I was like, I don't really want to go back into business development for another contractor. And I'm not excited about any of this stuff. And I could
Yeah.
feel energetically that it was like time for me to really try and do the business thing again. I had tried a couple of different businesses that did not work because I kind of fell in love with the idea without really understanding, are there customers for this? Whereas
Ah,
my husband was like, Lindsay, he works in the building world also, and the architectural world also. And he was like, I'm seeing a lot of these walls getting specified on projects, and I don't think there's a lot of companies doing this. So I thought to myself, well, you know what? Why don't we try it? And so for 6 months, he's like, Lindsay, give yourself 6 months and see. You can always go get another job. And
that's a
I was like,
supportive husband right there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We were
Go,
saying, like,
hubby.
no, hubby. Yeah, he's great. He's like, well, you know what? Like, let's try it. And by the way, at the same time, he bought the business he was working for, and we also bought our house. So it was like we went
Oh.
into massive amounts of financial instability to do this in 2018. We were
We're
like,
all in on
we're
owning
all in on
everything.
everything. Ugh. And so, it was a really interesting, we'll put it this way, it was a really interesting experience because we went from just trying to do something new, right? And
Yeah.
so, how it really started was me in my house. I put $2 or $3 a day on Etsy for advertising. We were getting like 1 or 2 inquiries a day at that point, which was pretty a lot for
A
that
lot,
period
all
of
things
time.
considered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because nobody else was doing it. I mean, literally no one else is on Etsy
Yeah. If you
doing it.
want something made out of moss, you need to talk to Lindsay.
Right, exactly. Like I was, there was 2 other companies in the United States that were doing it. And I was starting very small. I mean, I was making like tiny 3 foot by 4 foot pieces in my house. And then it quickly turned into bigger and bigger clients. Like we got a project with Southwest Airlines very quickly afterwards. Like it was a lady who was doing an event for Southwest Airlines, was like, I need a moss lettering. I was like, okay. And so we just made that really quick. And then there was a real estate agency in California that was like, this is super cool. We want this for. And so it really was like project by project by project. And my goal initially was if I can make $1,000 a week, then I know I'm in business and I can cover my costs for my
Yeah.
house and my other stuff and not like make us completely bankrupt, basically.
Yeah, exactly. The
Um,
business will be supporting you instead of the other way around.
exactly. Well,
Yeah.
kind of, but like whatever. I was like,
Well,
okay, if I could
close-ish. Yeah.
ish, right. And like I'd say like the first year we made maybe 20 or $30,000. It was not a lot, but it was enough to start. And then it started to get busier. And then there was a woman, we have a duplex house. So it's like a small cottage in the front, small cottage in the back. And the woman in our back house actually was an artist. And so she was sort of my first contractor employee person who came and helped me a couple times with a few projects to try and get them off the ground. And that was really great because it was like, oh, okay, well, then I can focus more on sales and marketing because I have someone else who's doing the mossing part who's better than I am anyway.
Yes.
And we did, and then we got a project for like Walmart corporate's office. They wanted some signage and we got like, so it was just like we were starting these like really small, but they were like big names that were reaching out to us. And I was like, this is cool. Obviously, like somebody's into this.
Exactly. And it
Uh,
adds to your credibility to be able to say, Walmart is one of our clients.
exactly. Exactly. Because people think it's like we're in the Walmart stores. No, we are not in the Walmart, but we are in their corporate offices in California. So anyway, so it was like very much like that. And it was one project after another project after another project. Pretty much like about 6 months after I started going full time, then I made a website. I started to actually hire people. My team was finding other people that were like their friends to help us. It was very loose to start.
I want to kind of just pause for a second.
Mhm.
You were in business for 6 months before you built a website.
I think
I
I was maybe
I just want to kind of shine a light on that because so many people are like, I can't do anything until I have a website. Yes,
sure.
sure you
Yeah.
can. I was in business for 2 years before I had a website.
Right, right. And I think that that's actually, and I didn't have anything to put on my website. So it wasn't like what was I going to put on there? I
Yeah,
don't,
exactly.
we even used like my husband's entity because we're like, we don't know if this is going to be a thing. It was not well thought through. It was just like, let's try this. It was very, very haphazard. There was no business plan. It was like people are calling and they want this, so we're going to do it. That
Yeah.
was the whole business plan. And there is a book that I read called Anything You Want. And it's about how this guy launched a company called CD Baby, which was like eventually acquired, but he like started because he needed something for himself. We needed a Mosswell for ourselves. And then all of his musician friends were like, can you do that for me too? Can you do that for me too? And then it like evolved as the business evolved. And then he helped people get their music online. And it was for indie people to get their music online. And that was his business. And it just evolved. And all he did was listen to what people wanted. And in the very beginning, that's what you do. You're like, okay, you said you want this. Okay, I'm going to do that. That's my job, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And it's just evolving into that. And then eventually you become the magnet for the thing that you do really, really well.
Exactly. So you mentioned that you'd had some entrepreneurial efforts prior to this that did not have markets. Tell me how this one is different from how you approached those ones.
I approach them all the same. It's like jump off a cliff. It's really bad. This is not how you do business. I was like, this seems like a good idea. I want one of these, that kind of thing. The difference is, I think, is the listening. My ability to say, okay, and my husband saying, hey, I think there's a lot of people who actually would buy this. And it's a really weird niche business in the sense that they're all handmade products. They're all different. Everything is custom fabricated. You're paying for custom fabricated things. It's not a normal, like I make this widget and then I sell this widget. There's a
Yeah,
lot of back and
20,000
forth.
units of the identical whatever it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you how many people have said to me, you should make moss frames and just sell those. And I was like, I have literally sold 4 or 5 moss frames in the 8 years that I've done this, and I've sold over 1,000 moss walls. So I can tell you that is not the market.
Yeah.
And if I had listened to a typical business person, they would have said, well, no, how you do business is you make standard products and you sell those standard products. And I don't agree because that
Well,
is
there are some businesses where, yeah, that's the answer, but there are other businesses where that is absolutely not the answer.
exactly. And so a lot of it is like really listening. And it is also, we had clients come in and say, well, I don't really want a moss wall. I want a succulent wall. So then I had to figure out how to find succulents that looked good. And you can't get those at Michael's, you can't get that stuff. So I was like, all right, well, what do I do? Kind of thing. So it's been a whole process of understanding what do I like, what was actually profitable because small pieces are not profitable in my business model. What do I have the team for? What do we specialize in? And it evolves. It's evolved over time. But most of our work, I would say 90% of our work is high-end commercial, large-scale moss walls. That is, and logo work. That is the majority of our clients.
How
There
do
are
those clients typically find you? Do they find you on Etsy?
They might find us on Etsy. Designers find us on Etsy
Yeah.
sometimes, but it's more they find us through Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. We have a Google ads. I mean, we are everywhere. I do podcasts constantly trying to promote what we're doing. And I put that out on social media. If you're Googling, we're one of the top ranked websites now. I've spent a lot of money and a lot of time on search engine optimization,
Yes.
and which is interesting right now because AI is now shifting that. So how do you stay relevant?
There
It's
are ways actually to get into AI's memory banks so it presents you
exactly.
as a result. Yes.
Yes, exactly. And we are, which is great.
Yeah.
But, it's been a whole process of learning. And then every time you're like, I got this, crushing it, then they shift something or
Of
they
course.
change an
And then you've
algorithm
got to
or
go
they,
figure out how to
what's
play
the
with
next
the new
thing?
rules.
Exactly, exactly. So my, what I do is I try to, we do some outbound lead generation for people that could be our customers. Either they've done moss walls with other companies and we're like, hey, we could do it better, or we're in the US and we know that this moss wall is from overseas, or we just target companies that we know would benefit from our design, adding these to their design. So a lot of work with interior designers and architects and things like that. That takes a really long time, though. I mean, it's not like you call someone and then the next day you have a project. You call someone, you have a project in a year and a half. So
Yeah,
you
that you
plant a
come to
lot of seeds.
mind as this project arrives down the road. Yes.
Correct. And then the client has to have the budget for it and the client has to want it.
Yeah,
And so those are two things that don't always, they may want it, but they don't have the budget for it, or they don't even know that they want it or whatever. So
right,
it's a lot
exactly.
of
Or it's
education.
presented to them as a concept and they're like, yeah, no, not quite.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. So, I mean, we're part of it. But every time I think, oh, well, we don't have any, it gets a little quiet, or we're in a transition period. Right now it's like kids are going back to school. People are
exactly.
not making decisions right now. But what happens is about the end of this month, everyone wakes up and they go, oh my God, it's going to be
The end of the
Christmas.
year is coming. Yes.
End of the year is coming. We got to get this moss wall in before the end of the year. It's hysterical. Every year that happens the same. 2021 was the only year where it was like just we didn't feel the school thing because obviously people were not at home.
Well,
But
exactly. Everyone, the world was homeschooling still.
exactly, exactly. So everyone was home the whole year. But like every other year has been, it's like there's a big drop off like around the holidays, and there's a big drop off like during the summer, and then it gets crazy in the spring and in the fall. And so we know that that's the rhythm. We prepare the team for the rhythm. We're like, we're going to be consistent during the summer, and then it's going to start to we're going to start to hustle a little bit more
Yeah.
these other times. So it's great. It's great. It's been, and I've got an awesome team now. It's taken a long time to curate the team. And so it's been a really amazing learning experience. We'll just put it that way.
All right. So we are up on our first break already. And I know as you've been going through this, you've been momming all the way through this. So when we come back from the break, I want to talk about the challenges of being a new mom with a new business. You've got two babies basically on your hands.
Yeah.
And I'd love to understand how you balance that. For all of you out there in listener land over the break, grab your pen, grab your piece of paper, and think about some of the places right now where you're feeling stretched or you're feeling challenged in terms of keeping your family life satisfied in addition to your business life. And just kind of pay attention to where the stretch points are right now and hang with us. We'll be right back from the break.
Oh, shout it loud, but we'll hear. Tech is ours and we show no fear. No fear. No fear. No fear.
Thanks for hanging in with us through the break. This is Zofia Morales. I'm still here with the amazing and wonderful Lindsay Scherr Burgess, and she's the Boss Moss. So, Boss Moss, tell us about being a mother and having a new company and all of this. How did it all arrive together, and how did you work out that particular time demand puzzle?
It was a surprise because all the best things in my life have been accidents. And so I was 40 when I found out that I was pregnant with my daughter.
Well, congratulations. A lot
Thank
of people have
you.
to go to a lot of work at that age.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I remember thinking to myself, like, what's the next challenge? Because we had worked through so many operational issues within the business. We were on like just an insane trajectory from 2019 through the pandemic and then after the pandemic in 21. So by early 22, I was like, I finally had the systems in place. We spent a ton of time documenting, organizing, cleaning up, doing all this work to make it so that the day-to-day stuff didn't necessarily have to go through me.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, like, what could my next challenge be? And
When you ask the universe these questions, it will
you
answer you.
you have to be careful.
Yes.
And so I thought to myself, like, what could it be? What is the right answer on that? And it ended up being that I was pregnant and pregnant by accident. And I actually had been pregnant like a month or two or a couple of months earlier, and nothing happened with that. So it was like a surprise. And then I was like, okay, well, if this is going to be the case, let me make sure that this one comes to fruition. So it
Yes.
was also very surprising. And I actually think that it was from getting the COVID vaccine, which I think is kind of insane. But I went
Wow.
online and there was a whole group of women in their 40s being like, I haven't been able to get pregnant and now I'm pregnant. And it was
Isn't that
very weird. And
interesting?
so I was like, or we all just were relaxed and home and magically it happened.
Well,
I don't
and
have any
it
scientific
may
proof
be
on
a
this.
convergence of many things, right?
Correct.
Because it occurred to me, you're like, well, we've kind of worked out the operational issues and we're in a rhythm. I'm like, her stress went down.
And it could have been that too. It was
Yeah.
probably a combination of things. I started to get healthier. My husband started to get healthier. There was a few things that we started to focus on our own well-being. And so I think that there was that. And I remember thinking, I wouldn't be opposed to this.
Yeah.
Not only was I not opposed, my daughter is here. It
And now
was
you're all in on it.
now I'm all in, right? And so how do you manage through pregnancy where your brain doesn't work and you're also just like kind of it's almost like being in a fog in a lot of ways, and I'm not
Mhm.
fully out of the fog, to be very honest with you, even 2.5 years later. And then also, how do you maintain your happiness levels and how do you maintain your focus when you're building a human in your body, right? And
Yes.
I sort of had to let a lot of things go. And I think that that is motherhood in a nutshell. The 2019, 2021 Lindsay is not the same person as the 2025 Lindsay. My priorities have definitely shifted. My outlook has shifted. My problem solving skills have shifted. What I think is important versus what I don't think is important anymore. I used to be much more short tempered than I am now. And I think part of it is because having a child puts a lot of things in perspective.
It sure
When
does.
people are doing, when someone comes and they're complaining about something, X, Y, or Z, I'm like, I made a human. Like, whatever. You know what? We'll work through this. It's just
Yeah.
moss. Let's work it through, that kind
Yeah.
of thing. And even when we've had like really challenging times, it has just completely changed the way that my brain works. And the small stuff, I just sweat it so much less. As a perfectionist who's overcoming her perfectionism, I've realized that you can't perform in the same way, just in terms of you perform differently. And in some ways, I think actually better because you are kinder and you have a better longer term perspective because your child is just forces you into that kind of mindset. So it's like, okay, so if this is going to be something short term that's a pain point, I know that in 3 months it's not going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
And before I would just internalize all of that stuff in such a heavy way. Now I'm like, you know what? We've worked through it. We've had problems before. We're going to work through them again. So it's very, and I have had every single terrible thing that you can possibly imagine happen in this business, and probably more than you can even imagine. And we're still here. So part of it is also just like building that resilience when your child has COVID and you have COVID and you're still having to work and do all these things. You just work through it. I mean, it's literally my whole mantra right now is I'm doing the best I can with what I've got. And sometimes it's not a lot.
Yeah. So can you give me a couple of examples of things that used to bug you that now it's like, yeah, I don't even waste energy on that?
I think if clients are really difficult and they're kind of jerky, I used to just really internalize that. And we don't have many of them, but occasionally you just get like a real pain person. And what I started to be like is this is their issue. This is not my issue. This is their issue. And so I'm able to sort of like put an energetic barrier against myself. And before I used to just internalize that so much because again, these are pieces of me and my team's soul that are going out into
custom creativity.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly. And so that I've had to let go of a lot. And then I just go into problem solving mode. It's like, okay, well, let's fix it. Let's just make it better, that kind of thing. So I think that that has been probably like the biggest shift for me. Instead of spending millions of hours internalizing or getting upset when I've had employees who have stolen from us, and whether it's time stealing or it's money stealing, et cetera, material, whatever. And that stuff used to really bother me. And now I realize that people are just going through things and this is just where they are. And I have to just stick to my guns and do what I think is in integrity and move forward. And that's it, you know? And it's been a lot of evolutionary growth as a person and as a leader. I've also had to let go of a lot of things that I just wouldn't have let go of before. Before I would have hounded something. And now it's like, I'm like, all right, well, you know what? We're going to get through it. And
That happened, and let's figure it out.
let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we deal with a lot of people who give us wrong measurements or who do other things incorrectly. And then we have to fix their mistakes. There's been situations where they haven't communicated like a huge box in the wall. And then we have to build around that box. And it would have been really helpful to have that information. And those are the kinds of things that like I used to get so wound up about. Now I'm like, okay, well, the client's an idiot. Like, let's keep going, you know, kind of.
Yeah. We will find a way to deal with it.
We will deal with this too.
Get on with
you know, that kind of thing. And so I think that it puts a lot of things in perspective. It's just not, as long as my child is safe and as long as my family is healthy, the rest of the stuff will work itself out.
Very good.
Yeah.
So speaking of other people, you now have a team of employees. I think 8 is the number.
Yeah.
How do you foster a positive and creative work environment, especially when this kind of dumb stuff is coming from their subcontractors or clients or whatever?
We try and joke. We joke, we laugh. We also like literally put comments in project cards like this person's a jerk, or when we're talking about them, we're like, this person is really hard to deal with, or it's very hard to get answers out of this person, or this person's amazing. You're going to love working with them. And so it's really helpful because it goes across the team. So the expectation is like, okay, well, I know that that person's difficult, so I won't get upset that that person's difficult. Yeah. And that's something that we've actually developed as a self-preservation tool, right? Not trying to take it personally, but being like, okay, some people just like,
and that way you're not blindsided by it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. This one's amazing. This one is super responsive. This one gets back to you quickly. This one, you have to hammer them by text, email, and phone to get one simple answer. So it's just every person's got different personality types. And so that's kind of how we navigate some of those things across the team. And then we make jokes and we say, you know what? Like this guy was difficult. All right, next, that kind of thing. And so it just makes it easier. Or this person was not my favorite. And we're going to keep moving on. But again, 95% of our clients, I would say, are awesome people that I would drink a cocktail with and by the pool. It's a couple of those where you're just like, ooh, that was a surprise, or like that came
Well,
out of nowhere. But,
yeah, if you're in business, you're going to run into some of those, right? It's
absolutely.
just,
And then there's also certain people where I've started to be able to recognize patterns where I'm like, this person is going to be incredibly difficult to work with. And I actually charge a pain in the ass fee ahead of time because I
good.
know that they are going to be really particular about something or really unresponsive about stuff. And I'm like, nope, I'm building in a difficulty fee for you because I'm not playing this game. And if
Yeah.
they want to do it, great. Like I said, that is a very rare case, but that's something that I have started to learn after you work with hundreds of people because we have a
Yeah,
lot
you
of repeat
start to
customers.
recognize the early flags. Yeah.
There's flags. There's
Yeah.
absolutely flags. And if they start negotiating immediately on price, or if they start negotiating immediately on the design or things like that, you're just like, are
Hmm.
questioning your ability to do things. I'm not asking what you do in your business that makes you the best at doing this. I am one of the best people in the country for this specific business application. So you should listen to what I have to say, kind of thing. So when that happens, then I'm like, okay, I just need to be mindful of that and prepare myself and prepare my team for those kinds of things.
All right. So, what would be your top tips around balancing motherhood and entrepreneurship?
Get an amazing mother-in-law and get an incredible babysitter. I mean, like
Well,
literally.
it might be too late for the mother-in-law. We might be stuck with the mother-in-law we already have.
All right, well, this is the challenge. The benefit of having a child of 41 years old is that one, you have more resources than you do in your 20s and 30s. I am blessed with one of the best mother-in-laws on the planet. She loves my daughter. I mean, she's with my daughter like 1 to 2 times a week, keeps her overnight, typically on a weekend, so that we have some downtime,
You
things
can
like that.
sleep. Oh, she's a good mother-in-law.
She's a great mother-in-law. So if you don't have one of those, then you need to find somebody who is what I call on the team. And so we have a woman who helps us not only with my daughter, but also tidying, laundry, except dishes, etc., so that in between bigger cleans, she's just keeping the engine running. And I think that similar to business, you have to almost run your home like a business in certain ways. You've got to make sure that you have people who are consistent, who show up, who make your life easier, who are easy to communicate and receive feedback well, and who bring joy to your life and bring joy to your child so that
Yeah.
your child likes them as well. And so we have been just incredibly blessed with her and with both of them. And then I also outsource meal preparation. I have a woman who comes in on Sundays and meal preps for me. I found her through care.com. And that has been life changing
Yeah.
because we come up with a menu of salads and pastas and enchiladas and whatever else thing that she makes. And then during the week, we warm everything up and cook the stuff that she meal preps. You're not eating like weird prep food and you're also getting like delicious meals and things like that. But she's
Some
marinating
stuff that,
vegetables and that.
yeah,
But I'm not
exactly.
having to spend 4 hours on a weekend doing that. And it's huge. And so she helps. And then we Instacart in the food. So I'm not having to grocery shop. And the reason is because I have to protect my time so much in this phase of life, just because I'm with my daughter, she goes to school, and then
And
she's
you're
home and we're together
working
till,
and
yeah, and we're
exactly.
working and we're eating dinner and we're doing all that stuff. And so it's really been, I have to really protect like what I want to do in this phase of life. Now, I know it sounds bougie to have all of these things, and we do prioritize spending our money on this stuff, but
Well,
that's just
and
where we are in
I
this phase.
I want to put a pin in that this is a bougie thing
Mhm.
thought, because if you think about how a man is able to approach his career and
Mhm.
play 100% full
Mhm.
on, it's because he has this wife in the
Right.
background that manages all of that. If you are the wife and you have your own career
Mhm.
and you're managing all of this, you're working three jobs,
Yeah.
is what's happening here.
Right.
And so it makes sense for you to be able to play full on to have people who are playing that role, who are doing
Exactly.
the household executive management, meals on the table, cleaning, making sure all this stuff is arriving. And
Mhm.
I highly endorse and approve doing this because it will save your sanity. It will probably save your life.
Yeah. Right.
um, and it's a good investment of money in your health and well-being, in your
Correct.
family's health and well-being.
And it's funny because my husband was like hemming and hawing, do we need this? Do we need that service? Do we need to keep doing this? And then we didn't have them for a week. And he was like, oh my gosh.
We totally need these
We
people.
need all of this. And he doesn't even see it because it's like almost invisible. It's like
Yeah,
he doesn't understand how the laundry works. He doesn't, and he's a great, super helpful, amazing husband. Helps me with so many things with my business. He does, but it's like there's just this like kind of invisible, oh, we're just not going to, he doesn't necessarily always pay attention to the laundry or always pay attention to the
yeah,
dishes. That's fine. He does plenty of other stuff. But when it falls then back on me and we're used to having a rhythm and a flow with someone to help us with that stuff, and there's plenty of people I know who have a lot more support than we do. I just minimized it to like what we think is acceptable to keep. And my house is still never as clean as I want it.
yeah.
Never.
Yeah, well, and
Because
that's part of recovering perfectionist. No, it
exactly.
doesn't have to look better homes and gardens 100% of the time.
But I would really love that. And it
I
just,
know.
that's not where we are right now. And there are limits to it where you're just like, I don't want to pay more money for this kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
for me, it's like I have made this choice to have this business and to support 8 people and to make sure that everybody's continuing to be employed and staying on top of all these details. So it is a lot of outsourcing at home to make sure that my daughter is cared for properly and that we have great resources around us. And we're very,
Yeah.
very lucky. Not everybody has that. And I can tell you, my friends who do not have an extended family network, they just pay so much money for help because they
Yeah.
don't have a choice otherwise. And that's the challenge with
Well,
working in
yeah,
America.
the challenge is that resourcefulness, right?
Mhm.
And extended family is amazing, but what I want to say, chosen family can also be amazing
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we're not all blessed with a lot of relatives, but there are amazing people in our worlds, in our lives that can be resources to us, and we
Absolutely.
can
We
be
have friends who
resources
trade
to
off.
them. You
Yeah.
bet.
So they
Exactly.
trade off picking up their kids. There's 2 days a week where one's picking up the kids, and there's another 2 days a week where another one's picking up the kids. So then and then they take the kids for a couple of hours so that if you need to work later, that's another resource that like I see people using a lot is like within the communities that are created from people who have similar age children.
Exactly.
It's an amazing thing if you have the right school community. What an incredible resource that is. And I think that's one of the things that no one really talks about either is like the school that your child goes to and the people that you meet through that school, like those people become your friends. You hang out a lot. You have to hang out with them because your children like to hang out together. And
Yes.
you want to be in groups of people that like are uplifting and you enjoy being around. That's a big deal. It makes a huge
Yeah.
difference. And it's a lot of fun if the other moms are like, oh, are you dealing with this too?
So let's find a solution that helps all of us.
Right. Yeah, exactly. In our school, my daughter's in a Montessori program, which is not everybody likes Montessori, but there's like a certain group of people that are really into Montessori. I went to Montessori when I was very young. And I think that there's a certain group that it attracts. And they've been amazing, amazing. And everyone's so inclusive and they're fun to hang out with. We always
Yeah.
have a great time. So
Yeah.
it's
And it allows
fantastic.
for opportunities like nanny share and that kind of stuff, which can really take down timeshare costs or timeshare, childcare costs as
Yes.
well. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I know people that travel together. We've actually traveled with other families. There's a lot of cool things that come out of the school thing, which I didn't really, no one ever talked about, which I developed a whole new group of friends from being at the school with my daughter. So it's just awesome.
I love that. I love bringing forward ways that we can be resourceful because, especially when you're starting out and the business hasn't found its traction yet and that kind of stuff, you can feel like, geez, should I be spending my money this way? And one of
Absolutely.
the exercises that I like to do is, okay, my business goal for this year is X. Say you're shooting for your first 6 figures or whatever it is, right? This is my business goal. What is, how much time do I have to invest to get there? What is my cost per hour? And what am I doing that is not that cost per
Mhm.
hour?
Mm-hmm.
And now you've got your hit list of things that you need to give to other people so you can go land the work that makes that target money.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I think
Or
when
gives
you
you free
think,
time.
yeah, I think when you think about it that way, it makes more sense. It's easier to give yourself that permission slip to spend $40 to send the laundry out, right?
Mhm.
Poplin or whatever the app is you want to go through
Right.
to find that.
Yeah.
Instead of spending 6 hours or 8 hours on a Saturday taking care of that, just send it out and get some rest and rejuvenation time. Work on that proposal for the client that's coming, whatever the thing is that you need to be at your best instead of doing the thing that sucks the life out of your soul.
Absolutely. And there's some people who love laundry. If you love laundry, do it,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not, if you love laundry, that's not your thing. Okay. You can
It's not
outsource
my thing.
something else. You can
Right.
bring in somebody to clean the house for a couple hours instead,
Mhm.
right?
Right. And that's the whole thing is how do you want to use your money? And that's been something that has also developed in my 40s is like being intentional about my money use. Before it was just sort of like, okay, I never really thought about it in any way. Honestly, I was just like, okay, here's the bills and this is it. And I
And
have a
it
little bit left
has to be
over.
paid. And yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right. But now it's more, I'm like, okay, if I use my money for this, then I can't use my money for that. I have to make trade-offs right now.
Right.
But then I know that I'm going to buy back some of my time. And in this period of my life, when my daughter's under 5 years old, I want to have as much time as I can with her where we're like having fun together and laughing and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And laundry is not part of that. And you know what? When she's a little bit older, it's going to shift again. Even the sending child to daycare versus having a nanny, there's all these decisions that you have to make that are, you have to make intentional choices and make pros and cons lists. Like we thought about, okay, should we keep her home? She won't get sick as much. But on the flip side, we put her in this amazing program. She can read. She's
Yeah.
two and a
She's
half. She can
well
read. She's
socialized. Yeah.
socialized. She's so much fun at school. She loves her teachers. And it's a beautiful community that we've created. And that was way better than any of the other stuff. So if you're making these kind of decisions and you've got to choose an either or an or, I always say make a pros and cons list like you would for your business.
Yeah.
And a lot of the same principles that work in your home are the same things that work in business. If you're having a hard time making a decision, make a list.
Yeah.
These are the things that could be good. These are the things that could be bad. You don't even really know until you get into it.
Exactly. Well, and that's what I was going to say. A lot of times you need to do the research, right? Because I have a friend, for example, who landed on au pair as her solution for
Mhm.
childcare. And it made perfect sense for her family because she had 5 kids. You think au pair, oh, it's going to be expensive. It's not as expensive as you think it is, first of all. And by the time you've not multiplied by 5 children,
Right. That's
it's
$100,000 a year in childcare costs.
yeah,
And
exactly. An au pair is a fraction of that. So that's what we're doing.
right, exactly. And so you have to really start thinking outside the box when you can be constrained by different ways. You can be time constrained, you can be money constrained, you can be, there's different resources that we have and attention constrained because even you might be feel pulled by your job to like even work after hours and things like that. I have friends who are working in big corporate jobs and they're working it after their kids go to bed and then back up at it again before work and things like that. So I know a lot of the people that you work with are probably more those kind of professionals where they're like,
We tend to
ugh.
be driven types. Yes.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Whereas I'm like, no, like this is my precious time with my precious baby and my 5 minutes, and I've worked my tail off to get to this point. You're going to have to wait.
exactly.
But I have the luxury of that now. I did not have the
Yeah.
luxury of that and there's people to take
Well, I
care of
was
me.
going to say, I suspect earlier in your career, you were probably quite familiar with that working late on the weekends up
Mhm.
before dawn situation because I think there is a point in our lives where the hustle is a priority. And I think there comes a point in our lives where it's like, you know what, been there, done that. And it didn't get me the marginal gains I was looking for. So,
Right.
yeah,
Right. And I do think that women try to fit into the male archetype of like, we're going to hustle, we're going to grind it out, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And first of all, it's not like how our physiology works. And second of all, it's not really that effective for us over time. It's just women are better at like planting long-term seeds, and it may take longer for the results to come, but the results come regardless. And then also, I think that if you're out like constantly hustle, and again, it depends on your job, but If you're out constantly like grabbing for things, it doesn't allow a lot to just come in.
Yeah.
And so again, it takes a long time. You have to do some of the sowing before you get to do the reaping. And you've got to put the infrastructure in place so that it is easier to reap. And like you said, there is a season of hustle. I spent 15 years networking my brains out, stay connected with a lot of people through LinkedIn and Instagram and all these different places. And then magically now I'm building something that the people that I networked with for 20 years are doing. And the other thing too is that like I met people in my 20s who are now in charge of things in their 40s. They weren't in charge when I met them, but now
Yeah.
they're being given the budget. So none of that is talked about, that it's just like, and if you think about life as a long-term thing and not just little sprints, you never know what's going to happen. We just did a project where I met a guy 10 years ago. He sent me his phone number on LinkedIn. I Googled his company when I was found out that they were doing a bunch of new projects and found his phone number in LinkedIn 10
Later.
so that's a great business development story. That didn't happen overnight. I didn't roll out of bed on that, but it's like I was out there meeting people, connecting with people. Sometimes it's a quick hit, like I want to do this and let's do it immediately. And then there's other times where it's like it doesn't make any sense and we're not doing this or
Yeah.
we're never going to do it. But you have to just be out in the world and connecting with people. And then on top of that, doing all the marketing and all the other things on top of that. So it's a lot of work to get to that point, but it's just been a great, interesting journey. And I don't know, I think it's like between having my daughter and also being in my 40s, I understand how long you are an adult. I don't think in my 20s and 30s, I understood that so well. I don't think
Yeah.
that
It was
I
a long time
rushing.
before I understood what adulting really was.
Right. I was fake adulting for many, many years. I was like, I think this is right. Or I think I should be doing this. And then I think, what happens is like either your priorities shift because you have a child or a family, or you just get older and then you start to realize these things aren't as important as I thought they were. You still want to have great standards. You still want to be doing things and having integrity, but you don't get
Well,
so
that's
wrapped
the
up in the
stuff
emotion.
that lasts, the having integrity and standards and a good reputation.
Mhm.
Those things are worth their weight in gold.
Yes. And you do get better over time. It takes a long time to do things. And everyone is so impatient to do things as quickly and as exponentially as possible and scale and grow, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. And sometimes it doesn't make sense to do that. I was not happy when I had 14 employees. I was very stressed out all the time. It was like there was always someone fighting with someone else. There was always somebody, we were missing material, we were missing this, we didn't have this. It was like too much chaos. And obviously, like we have better systems now than we did then. But part of me was like, this isn't fun. Like
Yeah.
I'm making somewhat more money, but I'm really miserable doing this. And now I have a great team, great size. We can add one or two more people without it feeling overwhelming to add some additional capacity. But it doesn't have to be this like super
Circus.
uncomfortable
Yeah.
thing. You know what I mean? And that's a choice. That's a choice too. There's some people who just want to scale everything to $100 million the next day. And there's other people who are like, I'm good. Like I'm
Yeah,
enjoying my experience.
this is a nice rate. It feels comfortable. This is, yeah,
We're getting the work
filling
done.
my
It's
cup.
it's filling my cup. The money, the bank account is going in the right direction. We're making the right investments in things, all of those kinds of elements. And so you have to try stuff and you have to figure out what your personality is like, and then you just do it. But that's been my experience. I don't have any answers for people about mothering. I'm not sure that I'm the world's best mother, but my daughter does tell me she loves me every single day. So it does work.
That means you're winning. So
Right,
far
exactly.
that's success.
Right. And when they're 2.5, they tell you they love you and then they smack you in the face because that is 2.5 in a nutshell. I had no idea. So
Well,
anyway,
just wait for teenager. They just smack you in the face and they skip the I love you, but
exactly.
give them a decade or two, they come back around.
That's so funny. Yeah,
Oh.
seems accurate.
So, what role has resilience played in your journey?
It's just all resilience. It's nothing but resilience. It's literally like, how am I going to be punched in the face today? And how am I going to solve the problem? And one of the things I say all the time is most problems can be solved with more time, more money, or more moss. And so it takes the weight of the decision off a little bit because everyone makes mistakes. everyone on my team makes mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. So I realized that that was a way for me to build my own resilience and also let myself off the hook a little bit. And again, it's a tool that I had to develop because Lindsay from 4 or 5 years ago would have said, that's not good enough. And you should berate yourself and you should feel shame around this and you should do this and you should do that. I can't believe you let this thing fall through the cracks, blah, 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 blah. Now I'm like, okay, I let it fall through the cracks. I'm going to clean it up and I'm going to move on. And it's a
Yeah.
different way of approaching the same exact problem. And so
Was
I
there a moment when you arrived at, you know what, I can just let myself off the hook and it's okay?
don't think there was like a specific moment. I think it was just getting grinded down by owning a business, to be very honest with you. And then everything that goes on with that. I have had employees quit and tell me that I was the worst person that they've ever worked for. I've had, which is, as I took your test and it was like, I'm a golden retriever. To hear that is like the most heartbreaking
Oh,
thing in the
yeah,
world.
because you want everybody to like you and
You want everyone
everybody
to
needs to
like,
be happy, happy, happy. Yes.
yes, exactly. And I am a happy person. I haven't had that in a couple of years, but there was a period where it was just very bumpy in that way. And I had issues with materials. I had issues with supply chain. Like there was no material for a period of time. And so what it does after a period of times, I think it just wears you down, where you're just like, all right, I can either go through the world miserable and suffering, or I can choose a different way of doing this. And honestly, like when I came up with that whole problems can be solved with more money, more time, or more moss, anytime that something gets really where I feel like really out of control, I say that to myself. It's so silly and ridiculous, but it just shifts my brain from sort of catastrophic level, we can't do this, this is a huge problem, to
End of
okay,
the
well,
world. Yeah.
yeah, it's just moss. It's just moss. It's not, no one is going to die if their moss wall is not installed today versus tomorrow. I know they may say they're going to die. I know that their life may end, but like it's not going to end. I promise you tomorrow it will be okay. It will be the same as today, that kind of thing. We don't miss deadlines. I want to be very clear on that. So if anybody's
Right.
listening, we don't miss deadlines, but we also realize too that if people don't respond to us and we've asked them 15 times for dimensions and then they say, "Oh, you've got to hurry up," then it's,
Your lack of planning is not an emergency.
is not my emergency.
Yeah,
Correct.
exactly.
Sometimes I make it my emergency just a little bit, but we have a big project that's going in, I think, on Thursday that we closed about a month ago. And it was a little bit of their lack of planning became our emergency, but we were able to deliver, which is really awesome. But it lined up that we had a little bit of capacity in these couple weeks. But then there's other times where I've had to say no to projects, which breaks my heart. I never want to say no. But at the same time, I also understand too, like I'm not going to kill my team for something that may or may not make a lot of money and is going to create a ton of aggravation. There's just,
Yeah.
at this phase of the business, I don't need to do that. And again, that is a conscious choice. There are people who will say yes to everything and then they will disappoint people. They'll be out of integrity. I would rather control it a
Or
little
they
bit
will
more.
be stressed out and ultimately
Mhm.
end themselves in the hospital at some point. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And so, no thanks, not interested in that. Again, it's all choices. I am not making the most money in the world. There are people who only prioritize that and they will do anything in their life and they will give up everything. There were phases in my business where I did do that, that it's just now is not a time that I'm doing that. And I think that the phases is really what you should be what people should be talking more about too, because what happens from 0 to 100,000 is different than what happens between 1 and 5, and what happens between 5 and 1 million, and then a million plus. There's different things, 1 to 3 million. And in each phase, businesses need different things. They have different constraints. They have different challenges. And what
And
applies
different
to me
priorities.
and
Yeah.
different priorities. Exactly. And I met a woman right after I had my daughter. I was really going through some soul searching and I was like, it's too much. I can't do this. I'm not sleeping. It's too much. My team is still relying on me too much, like to sell the business. I can't do this. It's too much. I met a woman who was a business broker and she said, do not sell your business. She's like, you'll get enough money for it, but you won't get, in 2 years, you're going to be so bummed that you sold this thing. And she was right. She was 100% right, because she was like, you're not thinking long term. You are in the worst phase of mothering where you're just not sleeping.
Exactly.
And
This is not the moment to make an irrevocable decision.
this is not the moment. And you will get less money than you should because you're in a situation that is more desperate than you should be. And so if I were to sell the business, I'm not selling the business, but if I were to sell the business now, I'm in a position of like, take it if you want, like if you want it, you
Yeah,
got to pay for it. Whereas before I would
exactly.
have been like, just take it. I can't deal with it,
Please,
kind of thing. And
whatever you
that's
offer me, I have to, yeah.
right. I'm done. I'm done. And I have seen friends of mine who are female entrepreneurs who didn't have the infrastructure in place and who did not respect their own physiology taking steps back because they just can't manage it all with their families and everything else. And they want to prioritize something else. And I think that that's not bad either. And no one talks about that. No one. Everyone just talks about hustle, grind, grow, scale, blah, blah, blah. To me, I'm like, you have to also make this thing work for you in the phase of life that you're in.
Yeah,
And especially with
exactly.
children and young children, I don't care what people say, it falls mostly on women. It just does,
It does, yeah.
Mhm.
It's very rare that there's a Mr. Mom that will take on all of that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And not get the societal weird stuff that comes along with that. So it's, and listen, I have an evolved, amazing, super helpful husband. But it's still like she wants me to cuddle her at
Yeah,
night and she wants me to talk to her about these things and she wants me to, and there's just, she doesn't want, it just is where we are in this phase.
yeah.
And that's part of it.
And it's a beautiful thing that you're
It is
able
a
to do
beautiful thing.
that.
It's really the coolest thing ever.
Thank you for coming and sharing all this wisdom with us today. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely.
And thank you for joining us today on the show. Let me know what you thought of the show. Grab your pen, grab your piece of paper, drop me an email to Zofia, at steminstilettos.com. Give me your feedback. Are there topics you want to see me take on, people you'd like to see me talk to? And until next week, go out there, be bold, be beautiful, and be authentically you.